We are all looking at these numbers, Peter, as you are reporting them. One word on the panel was shock. Another word on the panel was wow. Steve Moore, your analysis here. 38,000 new jobs created. The market is trading down in the face of this. Is there something more to this story? This is way lower than anybody expected.
It is, and you know, my jaw is still on the table. I am totally shocked by this number. It's very rare, Maria, that you see the prediction so out of line with the actual number. 38,000 is pathetic. It's you know, almost in recession territory. And the thing that's strange about this is this runs contrary to so much of the other economic data, which was showing a pickup. So I have to look at these bottom line numbers, but 38,000 is way below where we should be.
Dagan, I think it's fair to say we're not going to see an interest rate increase in the month of June.
No, and because Janet Yellen is completely fixated on the unemployment rate. But to Peter's point, you have the labor force participation, again, dropping. More than almost 500,000 people leaving the workforce. That's why you saw the unemployment rate fall. Construction jobs down. Mining and logging down by 11,000 in just a month. Manufacturing down. Again, these are the areas you've got to see some stability. This is not stability.
Yeah, and there's definitely, I think from the labor participation is a big concern to see that 450,000. There is another dynamic, which I won't say this is the whole reason the job report is down, but I can tell you from speaking to employers, both in the U.S. and even in Europe, but specifically in the U.S., they are hiring. They do have openings. I think the challenge may be that they're not finding the skilled talent for the positions that they need, and there's a gap here, and that is driving part of this report right now.
Who's calling me? Brian, is that you or is that Jonathan?
Maria, no, that's me, Maria. Let me just jump in for a minute. I mean, the number very weak, as some predicted. It was a surprise, but what are you seeing the reaction in the markets here? Stocks going down, gold up $14, $15 already. So once again, I think you're starting to see not only just the wage prices, but also the price increases across the board. Commodities are in a bull market. I think if I was putting money to work right now, that's where I'd be putting money, not into stocks, which are obviously selling off on this very weak news.
Yeah, the futures are down about 35 points right now. We've been seeing a deterioration in futures since this number hit. Jack Otter.
Well, what's interesting is that bad news is bad news, which means it's really bad. Because this does suggest, as Dagan said, that a June and July probably rate hikes are off the table, and the market would normally like that, but it's actually selling off, which means the initial reaction, at least, is that investors are actually concerned about the economy no matter what the Fed does.
This job growth and the revisions bring the average monthly job gains in the past 3 months to 116,000. That is a sharp slowdown from the average 219,000 that we have been talking about. President Obama touted his economic performance yesterday. Did he not have any heads up
so much for
on what we were about to say?
I would say the White House is probably as shocked as we are about these numbers. And, you know, we talked earlier about construction. What was the number again? It was down.
Down 15,000.
I'm shocked by that. I mean, all the reports that we've seen is that housing is doing well and that new home permits are up. And that just confounds me. And that fact that we revised downward, this is the worst monthly report we've had probably in 2 or 3 years.
Unbelievable. This is a really tough report.
Can I just, it may be good, and this is theorizing, it might go, what you've seen is home sales have been strong, and home prices have come back, but construction hasn't been there, and there's now an inventory problem. But you look at the construction jobs that are being cut, does that speak to, again, work rules and people who are having trouble hiring in this environment because they're struggling with lending? I'm talking about small businesses struggling with lending, struggling with all of the rules that have been put on them from the government. I don't know. I'm throwing that out there.
That's absolutely one of the reasons that employers are not hiring. This 100%, you hit the nail on the head. It's the regulation story. But you also mentioned earlier, Joni, the labor laws.
Yeah, the labor laws, and that's going to have an impact, I think, certainly when you look at the mandatory overtime now for, you know, someone that has a salaried position. You're going to have to bump people up that might have been making $30,000 or $35,000 possibly to a $47,000 salary, or you're going to have to pay them overtime. That is going to impact small businesses, mid-size, retail, restaurants. I mean, think about not only the minimum wage from the hourly worker.
I was just going to say, layer on the minimum wage.
Now we're going to layer this on. So it's absolutely putting things in place that I don't see how that's really going to improve the economy. And you asked before, what's the one thing that really could improve things? I believe wages are a big piece of it, but that's not the way to get there.
Well, this is up 0.2% on wages. Brian Brentberg, we're looking at an economy that has slowed down considerably in the last few months.
And that's going to feed into the narrative that we see. I mean, this is a crucial month, the month of June. What's the narrative going into some of these conventions? And you're going to see this number now informing that. And this is, again, this is very bad news for Hillary Clinton, coming on the heels of Obama trying to defend his record. This number cuts completely against that. The downward revisions in previous months, same thing. This is great news for Trump going into July.
Well, something happened in the month of May. I mean, I know that there were some weather issues. I know that there were some strike issues, the Verizon strike, but there's more to this number than that.
Well, you know, one of the interesting things is we've seen the growth numbers fall, but the employment numbers were better. And now what it's suggesting is that the jobs numbers are following this low growth rather than the low growth rising to match high.
That's right. And the jobs number was the one gem in an overall picture of bumping along the bottom.
Yeah, and look, I think all these regulations have a big impact. The other one is, remember we talked about this last month when the jobs numbers came out. The small business confidence index has been really negative.
Well, that's what Dagan's talking about.
Right, it's exactly what you were saying, Dagan. And that's reflected in the NFIB polls. And when small businesses, because 2/3 of jobs, right, are small businesses, not big corporations.